Tracking writing goals for 2016, aka how to set up a spreadsheet to do the math for you. So you want to set some word count goals for 2016. First thing you've got to decide is what sort of tallies you want to keep track of. Do you just want how much you've written for the whole year? Do you want monthly tallies, weekly, daily? Once you've decided that, you need to pick the headings for your spreadsheet. Hopefully these directions will work for any spreadsheet software. Typically, OpenOffice Calc acts more or less kind of sort of like Excel in its most basic commands, and I'm not doing anything super fancy here, so I'm hoping it will work across platforms. Anyway, what I picked for headings are the date, what project I'm working on, starting word count, ending word count, project words for the day, daily words, weekly words, monthly words, and 2016 total words. And then you need to take your headings, whatever you've decided on, and make them readable, because your headings are words, but everything else that's going in the columns are numbers. So you don't really want to stretch your columns out to accommodate your headings. You just want to be able to read what the heck they say. So if you select that top line and then go into, in my version of Excel, it's on the Home tab under Alignment, where you can also select, do you want them centered or left adjusted or whatever. I leave everything left adjusted. And then I just click on Wrap Text. And ta-da, the text is wrapped and I can actually read what those columns say. Then you need to set up the formatting for your columns. Whatever your defaults are, they probably stink. Usually because spreadsheets tend to be used for money, they usually default to having 2 decimal places for everything. So I went in and selected the date column and selected under the number formatting, again on the Home tab in my version, there's a section where there's formatting, and I changed it from general to short date because I don't need for it to spell out the month and everything. And then I left the project column alone because that will be words. That's going to be the title or a short title of whatever it is I'm working on. But from starting word count over, I selected all of those columns and set them to have no decimal points. And because I like to have commas in anything that goes over 1,000, I ticked that box as well. Of course, then I turned around and showed formulas for the rest of this, which destroyed the formatting. The formatting comes back in the last slide. But in the meantime, I wanted you to be able to see what the formulas look like that you're going to create. So the first thing is the project words for the day. That's the easiest one to set up because that's going to be exactly the same every single line going all the way down that column. Depending on how you handle things, some of those lines may end up being zeros, but that's fine. That doesn't change anything. So to get the initial first one, I clicked into cell E2, directly below where it says project words, and typed an equal sign, then selected the cell that has the 5, 6, 7, 8 in it from the ending word count column, type a minus sign, and then clicked on the cell that has the 1, 2, 3, 4 in it under the starting word count column, and then hit enter. So it created from that sequence of events the formula equals D2 minus C2. So what's going to go in that cell is going to be the result of subtracting D2 minus C2. 5, 6, 7, 8 minus 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, very imaginative numbers. And then for the rest of the column, you can literally just copy that cell and then select down as far as you want on the column and hit the enter button. It's going to copy that formula all the way down and just adjust for what line it's on. So it's always column D, or ending word count, minus column C, starting word count. It just changes the line number So for daily words, I'm assuming that I'm being my usual scattered self and working on multiple different things at the same time. So my daily word count is actually going to consist of multiple projects that got some kind of work done on them. So in the daily word count, I'm going down to line 5, where I'm deciding is going to be my last entry of the day is in line 5. This time, instead of typing an equal sign, I'm going to the Formulas tab and clicking on the giant sigma. Now that probably varies where you find it from version to version of Excel and from one spreadsheet to another. If you're lucky, maybe it's right on the initial bar that you have of potential things to click on. Somewhere in any spreadsheet, there will be a giant sigma that sums things up. Once you've clicked on that, now it wants to know what you want it to add. If you are immediately to the right of a row of numbers, it's going to assume until you tell it otherwise that you want to add up all the things to the left of it. If it is at the bottom of a bunch of numbers, a sequential bunch of numbers with no gaps, it's going to assume that you want to add up everything directly above it until you tell it otherwise. So in this case, the only thing it has next to it is that D5 minus C5, whatever number that works out to, and it will highlight that. You can click on that box and then drag up to expand how much is being selected all the way up to your D2 minus C2 box, or whatever your top number is that you want it to include in this total, and then hit enter. Now if you don't manage to select it right the first time, especially if you're using a trackpad on a laptop, it is very easy to end up selecting the wrong stuff and confusing yourself and Excel. Just don't hit enter if that happens, just hit escape and start over. Once you've actually got the things you want selected, then hit enter and it's going to say, okay, so you want me to sum up everything from E2 to E5. And I look at that and say, yes, that is in fact exactly what I want. Now, you will not have probably chosen show formulas, so you won't see that on the spreadsheet itself, but in the line up at the top of your spreadsheet, you should be able to see what the actual formula is in a cell, even if what you're seeing in the cell is a number. Now you just lather, rinse, and repeat for the weekly, monthly, and annual. So I added another batch of daily words and then told it to sum up my weekly words, which I've only got 2 things there, so sum up everything from F5 to F8, and so on. And then you're good to go. The weekly, or actually even the daily, monthly, weekly, annual words, you're going to end up having to do as you go. I haven't found a way to do that all in advance without setting up all of the days in advance, and then that's really limiting because what if you work on more things in a day than you thought? And also it can end up showing really big gaps, which can be very discouraging, which is the opposite of the goal here. The goal here is not so much to give some sort of, accounting of things so much as to just be able to see, yes, I got this much done. Which is actually also why I'll put my ending word count in before I go in and start editing and deleting things. If, as I'm writing on any given thing, I know, oh, you know what, I need to get rid of this paragraph, I'll actually select it and choose the option that lets you just line it out or change the color or whatever to tell me to go back and delete it later. But that way, I actually have how many words I really did increase for the day. Because I care about that. That's what motivates me. I'm not as concerned with, well, what's my net total for the day. That little tangent aside, then how many things you need to include in your daily words is going to change. How many things need to go in your weekly words is probably going to vary because you don't write for the exact same number of words every week. There may be months where you don't write every single week, and then the year is just adding up everything. What I tend to do is not cut paste the weekly, monthly, or annual words. I tend to I don't usually do the weekly words until the end of the week, period. But I will then, once I've done that, set the formula for the monthly words so I can see, okay, now what does this week add to my month, and what does this month add to my year? So if I go from the top of the spreadsheet all the way down, I've got multiple monthly words for the month of January and a bazillion annual words, probably 52 of them, for the overall year by the time all is said and done. But that's fine, because as long as you're telling it that what you want it to add up is, for example, in the year column, all the things from the monthly column, then that's fine, as long as it's not also adding up your previous things in the annual column. You should not be getting any sort of duplicated information. So I hope that helps. It is a little clunky. It's only slightly less work than doing it all out on paper. So if you happen to know of a better way to do this, then I am all ears. Please do leave a comment. Bye.